Good morning. My name is Doug Jones, Maximum Wealth. Thanks for joining us today. We have with us Mike Buckner. He is from Western Southern Financial Group, and we're going to be talking about and addressing probably the greatest issue that people face in the future, aside from actual retirement, which is healthcare during those retirement years. And Mike has done a lot of research, done a lot of work in this area, from the Social Security aspects, which we've done other videos on, to the actual aspects of healthcare in retirement, which we are going to dive down into today, get some specific information from him on this. And Mike, we'll just jump right into it. Thank you very much for being here today. I appreciate you joining us, taking your time and sharing this information with us. And I'll let you jump right in and go forward with what information you have here for us today to keep from wasting anybody's time.
Great. Thanks, Doug. And thanks for having me here today. And Doug brings up a very, very important point, is that healthcare is a huge challenge for people entering retirement. If you go out there and actually poll retirees as to what their number one concern is, it's how in the heck am I going to pay for healthcare during my retirement years? And it's even become more of a concern as we went through COVID. It actually brought it to the forefront because it affected a lot of the seniors out there in retirement, more so than the young folks. Sure. So it's become a huge issue. And so that's why it's very important to work with an advisor that's competent in the area of healthcare planning, which Doug certainly is. And with that, what we'll do is I'm going to go through a presentation that I've given to many clients over the years. We'll talk a little bit about the cost of healthcare during retirement. We'll also talk about Medicare. And Medicare is very, very complex. You think Social Security is complex? Medicare is much more complex than actual Social Security, because there's dates on when you have to make elections. There's Part A, there's C, there's D, there's B, and it becomes complex, and it's a hard decision. So we'll go through as much as I can with that today. Sure. But the most important thing to remember is this is education for you. Right. We're not trying to make anybody an expert in this today. Yeah. It's just to give you some knowledge, and you take some of that knowledge and then meet with Doug, and that's when we get down into the facts of what you should be doing during your retirement, or even prior to retirement, thinking about things like healthcare. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about long-term care, because that is a huge issue as well. What do you do if you need care and you can't provide for yourself, or maybe you can't provide for your spouse? So we're going to talk about that, because that's also a big issue. Sure. And these topics never really came up, years ago, because, people were only living into their 70s, but now people are living in their 80s and their 90s, and you have the more of the healthcare issues. And I always bring this up during my presentations, is that we have periods of our retirement life or lifespan, and I call them the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. And the go-go years is, hey, that's when I retire from my job, maybe, or maybe I do something else, or I do part-time work and I'm healthy and I'm able to go visit the grandkids and take some vacations and just do the stuff that I've always wanted to do. Sure. And then I get slow go years where, things start to slow down a little bit. Maybe, I feel more comfortable staying in my home environment, which that's where my parents are right now. They're about 80 years old, and, they don't like to travel as much anymore. They feel more comfortable at home. They've got their doctors and what have you.
Sure.
And then we've got those, what I call the no-go years. And that's where healthcare becomes a huge challenge for the individuals. And that's where we see the long-term care issues crop up. So it's best, to start thinking about this even before those go-go years. I would tell you, if you're in your, mid 50s, start thinking about it now.
Right.
How am I going to take care of myself, my spouse,
Absolutely.
or any other significant other during retirement? Even the kids. It's a good discussion to have with the kids. What are you going to do if mom and dad have to go into a nursing home,
right,
or they have an ailment?
Let me ask a question right there, Mike. You
Yeah.
talked about the slow go, or the go, slow go, no go years. And even back during the Social Security conversations that we were having, do you have
Yep.
years, the specific ages? And I know we can't be that specific, but what would you say are the ages that people are talking about in the go years? Is that 65 to 70, 65 to 75? What's any kind of average on that?
Well, we know people are working longer. That's obvious. So, people are working, people used to just say, hey, at 62, I'm going to start pulling my Social Security. Retire. People are working a little bit longer, and, work is not such a bad thing. It keeps you sharp, it keeps you healthy.
Yes.
But, if you say, hey, I'm going to retire, and, maybe I'll do something else, or maybe I won't do something else. Maybe I'll, decide that, hey, I'm going to go out and play more golf than I've ever had in my whole life. And, do that, and so, I'm going to give it to you from my perspective, and just watching my parents go through this, in their early 60s to probably, mid 70s, I saw them in their go-go years.
Okay.
They were out traveling. They were doing a lot with their friends.
Right.
And, things started to change mid 70s.
Sure.
Some friends passed away. They had a little bit more medical issues. They wanted to be at home more. They didn't come and visit us as much. So, mid 70s, probably to, early 80s, I would call those your slow go. And then you get to, your mid 80s, and, things start to crop up. My mom has the beginning right now of Alzheimer's. And those are, that's definitely your slow go.
Sure.
My dad's got to have hip surgery. He was supposed to come out and visit us in a few weeks. That's not going to happen. And, they're just slowing down.
Right.
So you get in your mid 80s, and it's different for everybody. I mean, I know people that are in their 90s that are running around, but I'm just, that age breakdown. That's kind of, where I see those different segments of the go, slow go, and no go.
Well, I see clients, I've been doing this for 33 years now, working with people. I've seen clients that I developed back in the late 80s and early 90s, spouses beginning to, one or the other of the spouses will begin to have health issues and health problems. And it creates a burden that they have never, you don't really know what kind of burden that is until you actually experience it. And then when you experience it, you see it. And more people are seeing and experiencing that now. But another experience is the cost. And these costs are what, obviously what we're talking about today, but there's no real regulation. You can say the no-go or the go, slow go, no-go years, and you can kind of put parameters about when those are. But when you get over into the cost of some of these things and some of these issues that come up during these years, costs are all over the place. There's no way to
Yeah.
quantify that, is it?
No, no. And I mean, that takes a huge chunk of retirees' income is actually, it is the cost of care in retirement. And I mean, you can turn on any news station that you want to turn on today, and you're going to hear all sorts of things about healthcare and retirement and Medicare Advantage plans.
Right.
You know, it's a concern, especially as the population ages. When you have 77 million baby boomers, heading to retirement, it becomes a real concern, and it's also going to put a real strain on the healthcare system. We had that strain. We saw it through COVID,
Right.
and God forbid we have anything like that again when you have all of these individuals heading into this retirement. And so it puts a strain on the healthcare system. And so if it's putting a strain on the healthcare system, they're going to have to hire more people to take care of individuals, which will then pump up the cost of healthcare. So that's why it's very important to have a good plan as to how you're going to deal with the cost of these healthcare issues during your retirement.
I heard a statistic the other day that I thought was pretty interesting, in that you mentioned the number of 77 million baby boomers. And the statistic that I heard is that we've only retired, since the baby boomers began retiring, or that reached that 65 level, only a number of about 10 to 12 million of those have retired. We still have in the neighborhood of 60 to 65 million people that are still going to have to retire, creating that burden, creating those entitlements for themselves. Which what is that going to possibly do to our economy? What is that going to do to our society when you get those numbers? Because we already see a large degree. I know when I go out, there's a large degree of seniors out on the road. There's a large degree of seniors in the malls and the grocery stores. And you, growing up in the 60s and 70s, you just did not see the percentage of seniors out, in their daily lives, going through the shopping centers, the malls, the theaters, different places. Today, there's a lot of seniors, but it's still a very small percentage of those people that have gotten into those retirement years. We've still got 60 million more people to go.
We do.
That perspective.
Yep. And, a lot of these individuals may want to retire and leave their jobs. But they have to stick around because they need that health care.
Sure.
So that's but we'll see what it looks like. It's something that has to be addressed. And like when we talked about Social Security, politicians don't like to address Social Security. They don't like to address healthcare a whole lot. They've been addressing that more over the years, but it's a real political hot potato when you start talking about, Social Security, start talking about healthcare. And the reason for that is we know the majority of people that vote out there, it's not the young people, it's the older population that's out there voting. So yes, this is definitely something that is a big concern for all of us.
Well, let me ask you this too. You've got there on the screen cost of healthcare in retirement, and we look at these premium increases and how these things have changed. And obviously, the healthcare issue is greater than inflation or earnings or anything else there.
Yeah.
Do you think these numbers hold going forward? Do you think these become even greater? What's your opinion or prognostication, so to speak, on how these premiums and this cost for healthcare is going to affect us going forward in the future?
Well, let's take a look at this slide here because this is kind of interesting. What we've seen is that, and it says this right on the top of the slide, that our healthcare premiums have risen faster than earnings and inflation over the last 20 years. So the premiums have gone up higher than the money that you're you're making as far as a percentage goes, and also it's higher than what we've seen with inflation. If we look from 2000 to 2005, the premium increase was 69%.
It's crazy.
Versus inflation at 13% over that time period, and earnings 16%. And that's not just a 1 year, that's 2000 to 2005.
Right.
And then 2005 to 2010. And what we saw is, the premiums came down a little bit, and we started to see inflation go down, and obviously earnings held pretty steady. And then we look at 2010 to 2015, and not too different. Overall inflation dipped significantly during that period of time. And now we're at 2015 to 2020. So inflation we think is going up. We don't think it is going up.
Yes.
Seeing a rise in inflation, but the healthcare premiums, 22% compared to your earnings, 15%. We've seen some uptick in earnings. Probably, I don't know how long that's going to last. It still amazes me when I drive down the road and I see a sign in front of McDonald's that says, "Hey, we're paying you $15 an hour as an employee, and if manager, we're going to pay you $18 an hour." Well, what's that going to do to prices? If you got to pay people more work, you're probably it's going to cost more for your hamburger.
Absolutely.
And I've already seen that. Yep. So you're going to see inflation go up. So healthcare, definitely, I think that's in the same ballpark. It's going to go up. Will it rise as much as we saw in the 2000s? Maybe not, but it's still certainly outpacing earnings and inflation.
Well, the thing that I think about with that, in looking at that chart there, we're going to see significant increases in inflation from 2020 forward. We're already seeing this. The chart's not there, but we can see this in the items that we're purchasing now. And inflation, even though it's been in that, those lower brackets there, I still feel like that there's a degree of inflation that's affecting the healthcare cost, which I think going forward is going to impact it even more, because we've seen inflation staying kind of in check during these years that we've seen 27% increase in healthcare costs. I know that's over a 5-year period there, but at the same time, I think it's going to impact it more going forward. I don't know, again, as much as the 2000 2005 time period, but I do think it's going to be more than that 27% that we've seen, looks like consistently there over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. If you're going to pay workers more to work, the price of goods and services are going to go up. If they have to, there's no choice.
Let me ask this question. Is there a dollar figure out there that seniors, say from 65 to, and I tell people to plan on living to age 99 or age 100. They kind of fall back when you say 100, so I say 99. And the third digit kind of throws people. But a number that people need to prepare for healthcare in retirement, just the healthcare aspect of it.
Well, when you take a look at it, as far as the healthcare projections go, this is just a cost projection.
Okay.
A healthy couple, they're 65 years old. We assume they have life expectancies of 87 and 89 respectively.
Okay.
87, of course, life expectancy for the male, 89 for the female, because we know that females tend to historically outlive their male counterparts.
Right.
But when we look at how much premiums you're looking at paying, It's around $321,000. That's figures, and this goes back to a report, the most recent report that we were able to get data on was a 2017 report. I'm sure that's gone up, but then you've got your out-of-pocket costs too.
Right.
So keep in mind that your Medicare plans, they don't cover everything. You have out-of-pocket costs,
Right.
and it's 82,000. So you add the two of those together, 321, 82,000. You're looking at 400 and some odd $1,000 of healthcare during retirement, and those are that's today's dollars.
Right.
No inflation factored in here, so it could be much higher. So
Absolutely.
Again, it's those are items that you really need to prepare for.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, so we're probably looking at, if you're looking at 400 and something $1,000 worth of money sitting there to be able to use towards your health care, just like we've had in the past in our retirement planning circles, having $1 million put back for at age 65 for retirement. And I don't know if that number does the job today, but that's been kind of the mantra over the years, to have put back for retirement. We need to be looking at, as far as healthcare in retirement, somewhere around 500,000 or $500,000 put somewhere earning interest, to be able to know that we're secure in being able to provide for our healthcare going forward.
Right. So no, it's a significant cost, and don't forget, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but those premiums, they're coming out of your, if you're on Social Security, those premiums are coming out of your Social Security check. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, but everybody's thinking they're getting a big raise this year, or next year, but I've got some bad news on that topic. So let's take a look at this, and it's longevity, and take a look at longevity. The longer you live, of course, you can expect you're going to pay more in healthcare. So if you take that couple that has a life expectancy of 87 and 89, and we look at what the total cost in healthcare dollars, we said it was around 400,000. If I go ahead and I use current inflation rates, not what we're projecting in the future, but let's say current inflation rates right now, and this is from 2020 inflation rates. When we inflate that out, that's $662,000 when you add inflation. If you live just a few more years longer, let's say that couple lives, husband lives to 89, wife lives to 91. Well, in today's dollars, that's 453,000. And then we use the inflation rate that we had in 2020. Now we're up to $767,000 as far as the cost of healthcare.
Wow.
And look at the difference between just living a few more years.
Right.
It's significant. Today's dollars, 49,000. If I inflate that out, it's $100,000. So it's $100,000 difference just when we put that inflation figure in there. So living longer, the cost can be significant.
Mike, people have no idea about these numbers. This type of podcast or video that we're putting together here, it kind of gets down into the numbers, and I think people watching this and listening to this will probably kind of glaze over at some point in time because of these numbers. But this could be devastating to a family, to a husband and wife going forward. And I'm thinking of people say, I'm 59. You're younger than me, but even in those situations at our ages, in people in their 40s and 50s and even 30s, This thing is going to do nothing but grow and become a greater and greater issue. You're going to have as much money ready to provide for healthcare as you are to provide for retirement in every other aspect of living.
Yeah,
The way I see this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 53 and I'm thinking about it now, and my wife is 9 years older than me. She probably would kill me if she heard me say that. She's right downstairs, and said I don't think she can hear me. I'm the perfect retirement plan for her, by the way, because I'll be working a lot longer than her.
Yeah,
We think about it. How much do we have to sock away? I'm fortunate in that I have retiree health care coverage where I work.
right.
I've got to work at my company for 15 years to get it, but
Sure.
but you know what? They don't have to provide that.
That's
It's
right.
it's not a guarantee. They can say, sorry, we're not going to do it. And they can just cut it off. It's
Right.
not a defined benefit plan, which a lot of those have gone away, or a 401k plan where you put money in and saved and you can use it for your retirement expenses or whatever. They can just say, hey, sorry, we're changing the plan. No longer are you going to have healthcare coverage.
Sure.
And they can do that if you're in retirement and you're collecting healthcare benefits from your company. Your company can just say, well, we changed the plan. Sorry, we're not going to do this anymore.
Sure.
You've got to be prepared for that. It's for a lot of people, it's just sort of an unknown.
Right.
And these figures, you're right. I mean, you look at these numbers and you can't get you can't glaze over and look at this stuff, but the reality is the reality.
That's
and
right.
That's why you need, again, and I preface this, you need to sit down with somebody that's competent in this area to help you figure out what you're going to do to cover these types of costs.
I heard a statement the other day, and it was a scenario for people's lives, and it's called the war. And the war is today's wants and the spending for today's wants versus the saving for tomorrow's needs. And it's what people go through on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis about getting out there and enjoying life and spending what you want to. But there definitely needs to be something in the back of people's minds about their life in the future and their future dollars, because you're out there working for money now, but there's going to come a time when you need that money, and you need it as soon as possible, that money working for you. And so the emphasis on saving, investing, and protecting those dollars for the future, it just looms even larger and larger. And people have been told to save ever since they were a little bitty kid, with a glass mayonnaise jar with a little slice cut in the top of it to drop pennies into. But it's something that people really need to get serious about for the well-being of their future, because it's just going to take more and more money to be able to provide for that future.
Yeah. And Doug, by the way, I do have a glass mayonnaise jar that I still have, that I have cut a little slice in the top of the metal.
Yeah.
I don't spend my coins. So
that's awesome.
That's where I drop everything. So
absolutely.
I still have that. So that
those things get heavy too, don't they?
They do get heavy. So the heavier the better, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at this slide here. And people make fun of me when I say this, but it is a female problem.
No, that sounds sexist. That sounds sexist.
It does, but it really is, because as I pointed out earlier, females tend to outlive males, and it's just that's just the reality. And if you look at it, look at a couple here, age 65 to 63, and we peg a retirement age of 65, and the husband's life expectancy is let's say 87. The husband's health care cost is around $279,000. And that, let's say she lives to 89, her cost is 362,000, which is 30% difference.
Sure.
So, it's just the reality is that, you need to think about that. Married couples really need to think about, what happens if, or when the husband passes, if he happens to pass away before the wife, and chances are statistically that is going to happen. And how is she or whomever, how are they going to manage the healthcare cost? Because don't forget, one of the things that happens with your Social Security check is when one person passes, your Social Security benefits, if you're both collecting, which you probably will be, they go down.
Yeah, absolutely.
They go down because you're going to get the greater of the two benefits. And my wife is collecting benefits, I'm collecting benefits, I pass away, my benefits tend to be higher than hers. Well, hers go out the window and all she gets is
yours.
So yeah, so that's a big consideration, especially for females, because of their longer life expectancies.
Let me add something to this, something that I'm seeing as I'm listening to you and looking at these numbers. These dollars that people are saving, putting back, preparing for this healthcare and retirement, it's vital that they protect that money, Mike. I know they want growth on it, and you have a degree of I don't know, desire for more risk. When you want your money to grow, you need more money in the future. But at the same time, you can't risk this money if you're trying to save it and put this money back, because the last thing you want to have happen is get this built up and have a market crash and have it in a position to where this 362 or this whatever number this is that you got out there turns into 120 or $100,000, what have you.
Yeah.
So you really have got to put the emphasis on a protective mode of existence for this money, more so than an aggressive investment style to grow this money, because you can't afford to lose it. I mean, it'll destroy your life.
No, and couple, and that's a very good point. I mean, some of the crucial things when you go through retirement, sometimes it's not about how much you have. A lot of it is how much is coming in as far as income.
That's right.
Income, there used to be a company, I'm not going to name them, but it used to say, "What is your number?" You see that commercial. Well, it's not what is your number, it's what is your income need. And so that number, if you're invested aggressively, and the stock market, we've had a great run, don't get me wrong, but what comes up often goes down. And this is a little bit beyond this presentation, but there's something called sequence of returns.
Yes.
And sequence of returns, if you're drawing money out of a portfolio in a down market, it can decimate your portfolio.
Yes.
And that's beyond what we're going to talk about today. But, Doug, you make an excellent point. Conservative investing, you do not want to lose these dollars. And again, the need for income during retirement, that is crucial.
In the financial advisement community, there is a look down or a not a favorable look towards life insurance and towards annuities, just because you don't see the returns in those that you do in the market. And so, even though it's consistent and conservative, it's still looked at in a negative way compared to investments that are maybe in the market or maybe in different types of funds earning higher rates of return. And so I just feel like that those products are more in line and probably do a superior job of a place to put money saving for healthcare in retirement than it is going out there buying mutual funds or buying equities or buying securities, hoping, because that's really what you're buying is hope when you buy these things, that this money is going to be there. It just to me, this money is vital, and it needs to be in a position of going into a contract, going into a guaranteed contract, to where, you know, maybe we can earn X number of dollars, which is a little larger amounts, but we do know it'll never earn less than this, or it'll never be less than these numbers, just from a security standpoint going forward.
Right. And, you know, quite honestly, when, you know, you look at people that utilize investments such as annuities, or utilize alternative asset classes such as life insurance, you know who uses this a lot is your wealthy individuals.
Absolutely.
Because they know the power of what these products can do.
Yep.
But however, the general public has been pushed in the direction of things like mutual funds. But your wealthier individuals are using this stuff for estate, business planning,
Right.
life insurance. They're using it for that type of stuff. They're using it for you know, retirement income because it's taxed more favorably. So you know, you've got your mass affluent are using these types of investments,
That's right.
these vehicles, to get them through retirement to save money. They know the power of these vehicles.
Well, you've got radio personalities out there pushing mutual funds, saying that they return on average 12% a year. Those things are just not true. And so you
Right.
have younger people that are listening to these people saying, you know, if I can get 12% a year on average, I can put my money there, and that sounds like a great return. And if it's averaging that, how can I go wrong? But you also have, from your perspective, those that are, quote, the rich, that have been already saved their money, grown their money, and have a degree of wealth. They know the truth about what is really going on with these mutual funds. And they know that mutual funds don't average 12% a year, because that's how they got their money. They were wise. They didn't listen to radio personalities just touting the flavor of the day. They understand what can happen to an investment. It can go up, it can go down, it can be taxed. It has fees, it has charges. There are a variety of things that go on with these investments. This is not a place you want to put money that you know you have to have. And I just don't think it's wise to be listening to the rhetoric of financial entertainment to be used in putting together a plan for healthcare and retirement, where you know you're going to have this money going forward.
Right. I totally.
I'll stop the rant. That was just, you know, that's my thoughts on typical financial planning.
No.
That it can't be used when you're talking about healthcare and retirement money.
Yep. And averages, there is no such thing as a 12% consistent rate of return. That's an average return. Returns are, I mean, it could be 12% one year. It could be a negative 12% the following year. There's averages don't mean a thing.
Anything. Well, we all know there's an actual rate of return, which is the actual dollars that you receive in that return. And then there's an average rate of return, which is just averaging those years out, which really, if you do the math, it means nothing. You're exactly right.
Right. So let's take a look at this. And I talked a little bit just a few minutes ago about Social Security.
Okay.
And Doug and I did a big segment, or did a big series on this a few weeks ago. But you take a look at your Social Security cost of living adjustments, and they call those COLAs. And, you know, Social Security can help, but, you know, it can't, the amount of increase as far as the percentages go, they're not anywhere near pacing what we would look at as far as the percentage increase in healthcare costs.
No,
I mean,
nowhere close, nowhere close.
I mean, we had years, I mean, where we had a 0% cost of living adjustment. Now, this year, we're going to have one of the biggest cost of living adjustments, or I'm sorry, it's actually next year, but they just released it. One of the biggest cost of living adjustments we've seen since the 80s, and it's projected to be at around 6%.
Right.
Now, you say, wow, that's a lot. But guess what? Medicare premiums are going to go up. Your Medicare Part B premiums come out of your Social Security check. So
Yes.
that 6% raise you think you're going to get, it's probably not going to be 6%. It may only be 3%.
Wow.
So don't get too excited. And the way that the Social Security Administration looks at how much increase percentage-wise cost of living adjustment you're going to get every year is they base it on the what's called the urban wage earners and clerical workers. It's called CPIW. And so if that increases, then you'll get a raise. If it doesn't increase, which we saw during 2010, we saw it during 2011, and don't forget those years was our Great Recession. We
Right.
saw 0% COLAs. Could that happen again? Absolutely. It happened in 2016,
Sure.
where we had a 0% increase.
Yeah.
2021, it was a 1.3% increase. This year, 6% sounds great, but Medicare premiums are going to go up. So it's really not as great as it sounds or appears to be.
Let me throw this in and ask you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my experiences in dealing with government programs, we've been introduced here to the new pandemic, the COVID issue, and we see where that COVID issue has affected probably the senior population a lot greater than it has the rest of the population. So we really don't know. I mean, we've got a 6% increase cost of living adjustment possibly here with Social Security, and you're talking about 3% of that money being taken out or additional costs being added onto your Medicare cost and Social Security. But we really don't know what's going to happen in the future, Mike. We've got things happening out there, that black swan thing where we are really going down a road we've never gone down before in the history of our world, because of we're living in a time we've never seen the likes of before, so to speak. You can look back at history, but there's a lot more factors affecting us today from a monetary standpoint that we've never ever envisioned, and people I don't think are fully aware of the different players of our society that are affecting our money. I think our friend Barry Dyke is putting together a new book on private equity and how private equity groups are affecting the investment world and affecting companies that they're coming in and purchasing, and how that's affecting, to a detriment, how these companies are actually performing. And that's an aspect that people have very little information about it. And when you talk about it, putting money in investments and looking at companies and their strengths and how this world is being arranged here, we don't know what our costs are going to be in the future from a Medicare standpoint, just looking at the numbers today. Am I right, or what's your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree with you. Private equity, it's scary because private equity companies go in and they'll purchase a company, and all they're really worried about is the rate of return they're going to get from that company, and they're not really looking at the consumer. They're in there for themselves.
Absolutely.
And so we've even seen that in some parts of our industry.
Yes.
Company Doug and I represent, no way we don't. We're not involved in private equity at all. And so but it is scary on how things are changing. And again, this, you know, there's a lot of uncertainties, and I think a lot of individuals have more fear today than we've seen in the past, thinking about things like healthcare, thinking about things like Social Security, thinking about how am I going to manage my retirement expenses?
Right.
What about long-term care issues and things of that nature? So it's times are changing, and so again, we go back to what we alluded to earlier: conservative investment strategies, making sure you have enough guaranteed income to get you through retirement.
Right.
Those are things that are important, not those high rates of returns that people are floating around out there.
That's right.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody that's been really, there may be a few people that have been successful doing stuff like that, but
Right.
the majority of individuals, it doesn't work out.
I agree. I agree.
So what we can see here, and this is something we talked about a little bit about just a few minutes ago, but the COLA costs for Social Security, they're just not keeping pace with the rising healthcare costs.
Mm-hmm.
Look at a 66-year-old couple receiving average Social Security benefits, and right now that's around $2,200 per month.
Mm-hmm.
Or close to $28,000 or $27,000 a year. And that's for somebody that's in 2017. And what I've done here is I made some projections that, a 5.4% healthcare cost increase and a 2.6 COLA increase. And those aren't my numbers. These are actual numbers where groups have gone out and done studies. This is from a group called HealthView Services that actually does studies on, the rates of inflation, the rates of increase in the percentage of healthcare costs. But if I'm age 70 and my annual healthcare cost is $16,000, and let's say my Social Security is $35,000, for example, these are inflated dollars now.
Right.
We started out with somebody that's 66, but I inflated those dollars. So now at age 70, my healthcare cost is 16,000. My Social Security benefits, inflating that at a COLA of 2.6% a year is 35,000.
Mm-hmm.
The difference, 21,000. So you can see the percentage of my Social Security benefits dedicated to my healthcare cost is 45%. And as I get older, you drop down to age 87, for example, the percent that's dedicated to Social Security is, or dedicated to healthcare from my Social Security check is 76%. So where are you going to get that extra money to live on?
Yeah.
You've got to eat. You've got to have a place to live. You probably need transportation. You've got, and I go back to again what we've talked about previously: investing conservatively, guaranteed income, things of that nature. Yeah. Those are what we need to look at to overcome these issues that you're going to see as you age through the years, and your cost of healthcare and the rising cost of inflation and the rising cost of healthcare goes up. So you need to be prepared for that.
Let me ask this. Let me throw this in there and see if this should be a factor. Taking Social Security later rather than sooner to be able to get those increases on the Social Security benefits to try to keep pace with some of this growth of healthcare costs. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that makes a lot of sense. The old adage was pull benefits as soon as you can at age 62. And right. What we really do is, when there is no magic age to pull benefits. I wish I had a number that I could tell everybody and say, this is the magic age. Mm-hmm. you got to look at your health, your longevity, how long your parents live. But I
Right.
would say most individuals today taking benefits early at age 62 probably doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Most and actually most individuals now, and I would like to credit a lot of people in the financial industry that's done a lot of education on this topic. We've actually got people saying, hey, we're not going to pull benefits at age 62. We're going to wait until at least our full retirement age.
Right.
And upon the year you were born, that could be age for most baby boomers 66. For me, it's age 67. But waiting to full retirement age to pull benefits because the benefits will actually be higher because they're reduced if you pull them earlier, or even beyond that, because for every year you wait, you get an 8% credit.
Right.
So the longer you wait, and especially if you're working, there is really no need to pull those benefits. You really have to.
And I think too, by waiting, your healthcare costs are going to be it's more apt that you're going to incur greater healthcare costs later on in life than it is during your 60s. So if you could forego those Social Security costs, and because really what you're doing is saving money, so to speak, by being able to let that 8% compound over those years and grow. So that's, obviously if you have to have it, you got to have it and you got to go ahead and take it. But if you can wait for that to grow, and it's just going to give you more money in the future, when I feel like you would probably need it more with the issues of healthcare.
Absolutely. And, I think we talked about this in our previous series on Social Security. I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars just by waiting, a few more years to pull those benefits.
Right.
Some couples, they don't realize it, but if they live through their life expectancy and they're able to wait just a few years to pull benefits, you're talking about could be close to $1 million from Social Security's, coming to you, and that's assuming the living adjustment just by waiting, 5 years or so. Again, waiting makes sense. It can help cover your retirement expenses, your healthcare expenses, etc. So with that, we talked a lot about the cost of Social Security. And what we'd like to do next is probably go over Medicare, because this is very complicated. We're going to get down in the weeds a little bit with this topic, but something that you need to know because right now we're in Medicare season.
That's right.
So people are having to make decisions right now about Medicare, especially those individuals that don't have health care coverage at work any longer. So with that, we'll take a break and then we'll come back and we'll talk about Medicare.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much. We will end this segment of our Medicare and healthcare in retirement discussion. We're going to move deeper into Medicare in the next segment. Please join us. Don't glaze over. Don't get bogged down in the numbers. Pay attention, because this is very, very vital information that you probably will not get anywhere else. Thank you for joining us today. And my name is Doug with Maximum Wealth. Subscribe to our channel at Maximum Wealth. Visit our website at MaximumWealth.net, or you can give us a call at 706-876-0844.